Good morning. This is a program for the Region 12 community. I'm here with seniors at Shepaug, and we're going to be talking about navigating the college admission and college application process. With me are on my left Sam Krebs, Rachel Crossley. On my right is Christine Klein and Kate McGrath, current seniors at Shepaug. Our hope is to give you some more information on navigating the process and some tips and tricks on doing it successfully, as these seniors already have. To start us off, we're going to talk a little bit about when each student began their process, and we're going to turn to Sam.
So I began my process, I'd say about sophomore year is when I started to really think about, oh, wait, college is coming soon. I mean, I still have 2 more years left of high school, but it's going to come up fast, and now I'm quarter of the way through my senior year, and it's fast. Came through fast. And it really started just thinking about what kind of a college setting do I want? Do I want a large school? Do I want a small school? Do I want a country setting? Do I want a city setting? And then just from there, I tried to think about what do I want to look into? What programs are good at certain schools that will match my interests later on? And I haven't exactly picked a major yet, but I've decided on if I want a city setting, and I have decided that I want a city setting, and so I've come down to a smaller list of schools that are based around that.
Okay, I began my search in my junior year, and my process was actually quite the opposite of Sam's. I started off with tons of limitations. I didn't want to be far away from home. I wanted country setting. I had a bunch of different specifics that I wanted to follow. And then once I started going through and looking at the colleges, seeing my majors, the programs that I might be interested in, I thought, why don't I just have the entire United States be my, what's that word?
Your whole field of search.
Yeah, my whole
Yep.
field of search. So I went from narrow to broad
Wide
with my
open.
search.
Excellent.
I kind of had the same process that Rachel did. I used the College Board, and I think it's just called the College Search. We can put in the exact criteria that you want. So I was like, at first, same thing.
Yeah,
I was
I
like,
have
okay,
tons of
I want a
criteria.
really small liberal arts school with 2,000 kids, and it'll be really close to home and rural, and it'll be great. And then I went and looked at one of those schools, and I absolutely hated it. I felt so pigeonholed. So I basically started all over. I redid the whole list. I just changed. I mean, it's really convenient, so you can put in exactly what you want. I could say, medium school, large school, location, majors, price, all of that. They could factor in for you and try to give you the best match or schools close to that. And that's basically how I found all of the schools that I'm now applying to.
Christine?
Like Sam, I kind of started mine in my sophomore year because I've always sort of known that I've been really interested in journalism. So I started looking up schools that I knew were really good for it.
Okay.
And then that's how I began to make my list.
Great. As you guys looked in sophomore and junior year, what specific activities would you suggest to our current sophomores and juniors maybe that they would start doing and thinking about to build their lists?
Definitely college visits.
Okay.
My summer of junior year, last summer, I did a lot of college visits, and you can't decide on a college you want to go to unless you really visit it. That's in my opinion, because you really want to experience it. And then I would also recommend not only take a visit over the summer, but also when it's in session, when school is in session, so that way you can see the student body, you can get a feel for what it'll actually be like in the day-to-day.
Great. Other thoughts on sophomore, junior specifics?
Well, I mean, just to back up what Sam said, I went to Quinnipiac's open house, but unfortunately it was the week after their students had gotten out,
Okay.
and it was really hard to get that vibe of that student life. Like Sam said, you just don't know what's going on around campus. If there is a lot to do, if you're putting in $20,000, you want to make sure that you're going to have a good time wherever you are, whatever you're interested in. You want to have something there to back that up. So that's, like Sam said, that's really hard to do unless you have that first-hand experience.
Yeah.
Great.
I would even recommend doing overnights
Okay.
so that you can get both the academic and the social atmospheres.
Have you done overnights?
Yes,
Yeah.
I've done an overnight at UConn,
Okay.
and I absolutely loved it. I fell in love even more.
And how did that work? What did you have to do to set it up, to make it happen?
Well, I have a friend who currently goes to UConn,
Okay.
so there wasn't much
Yep.
in the logistics terms.
Right.
So I just texted her one day, said, "Hey, can I come up?" And there we go.
Excellent.
I
Great.
know if you don't like have a friend at the school you're looking at, I know a lot of schools will offer that. Basically, you shadow a student for
Yeah.
a day, sort of a thing. I think it's more for like the accepted students, but I know they have options too. Like I've gotten a ton of the
Yeah,
spam emails
same.
from colleges about them.
Right.
So
Offering that opportunity.
yeah, it's definitely there.
Great. Christine, tips for sophomores and juniors, things to get going on the process?
Well, one of the things that I did was over the summer before my junior year, I did a week-long kind of like early college thing at Georgetown
Yeah.
University, and that even though I'm not applying to that school, it was just kind of I thought it was really helpful to see what it's like to like live on a college campus and like
Right.
go to college classrooms and like go through the day of what it would be like.
Get a real experience
Yeah.
at that school. Great. Okay.
Now, speaking of college spam, as Kate brought up, you might just see it and be like, oh, I don't need to open this. But you should open it because I got a bunch of priority applicant
Yep.
Yeah.
emails, and I would have never known.
Right.
And priority applicant, that means that waived application fee. It
No
really,
essay for
yeah,
some of them.
short application. So it's totally worth it.
Great. Each of you talked a little bit about your college list and offered a couple tips already about refining your list. Can you talk a little bit more about how you came from that larger list down? I know, Kate, you talked about College Board, and we've heard about college visits, but were there other things you did to sort of knock schools off your list or add schools on?
Well, one important thing for me and my family was obviously the price. So I looked at,
Okay.
private schools usually being more expensive. Then it was a matter of like what scholarships are available, or if you're looking at schools out of state, again, what you have to consider things besides that. You have to consider transportation costs, things like that. So those played into effect for my family and our financial situation, seeing how we would be able to, if this was a realistic school that I'd be able to go to without putting myself $250,000
Right.
in debt.
Okay. Other thoughts?
And I would always look at the program and like see
Mhm.
how well developed the program was at the school, and if it didn't seem like it was really well developed or would cater to like what I want to do, then I would drop it from my list.
Right. And you were very focused on the journalism program,
Yeah.
so that was important to you to make sure those
Yeah.
programs really were robust. Okay. Other ways that you guys refined your list?
One way it was the graduate schools for after your original 4 years, because
Okay.
I'm considering going on to law school. So
Yeah.
I mean, it's different from the major. That's why I said I was unsure
Right.
about my major before. But I wanted to find a school that had a law school that I think I would enjoy. And at the same time, it is kind of hard to decide that because they really don't allow much access to that for as a undergraduate trying to get into the schools to start off. But I spent a lot of time researching what law schools I thought would be appropriate for me, and that helped me refine my list.
Great. So after the 4-year bachelor degree, looking at the grad programs.
Yes.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I also did that
Okay.
because I'm looking at med school.
Yep.
So.
You guys talk about standardized testing, how it played into the process, what standardized tests you had to take for your schools, and how you prepared for them. Somebody want to jump on that?
I mean, even if you want to go into like some sort of an art major, you don't think you need to take the SATs, don't take the risk of not taking it.
Yeah.
Only to find out that they do want your SAT scores. Or,
Right.
scores can play into effect for how much financial aid you're getting
Uh-huh.
too.
Okay.
So don't put it off. Do not put it off.
Yeah, I know. I didn't take mine until the winter of my junior year, and I wish I had taken them starting in the fall.
Yeah.
Because then I felt like I was behind, and I
So the
would.
fall of junior year?
Yeah, I would start the fall of your junior year, get that baseline score, then study based off of that baseline score.
Okay.
One thing, actually, Miss Steinis gave me this advice for my SATs is that if you're registering, start with whatever you're more comfortable with. So if you're more comfortable with math, just focus on the math part of the SAT, and then you can go back and try to bring up your reading score, or vice versa, try to bring up your math score, just because that way you don't put as much pressure on yourself trying to study everything at once.
My experience is all like Rachel's. I also started testing I think it was winter of
Yeah,
junior year.
December.
And yeah, December-ish, yeah. And I really wish I had started earlier, like she was saying, because I wanted to take it the first time just as just a go around, just see how it goes. But and then after that, it kind of seemed like it was almost crunch time. Like I wanted to
Yeah.
get my testing done before the end of junior year, which ended up not happening. I ended up taking another one in like a couple month ago or so. And I really wanted to just get the first score, and then study from that, learn from it, and then try and just get it up and get it up and get it up. And what happened was I found myself like not having a lot of time to study, and
Yeah.
so my biggest recommendation to people is just find the time to study.
Yeah.
You know, like any second where you're like trying to find something to do, instead of just like getting on your phone or something, just do like a quick SAT math problem.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be a lot, but just take the time to do it.
They
This
have
is
it all
exciting.
online for you. I know College Bros, they have the actual timed practice tests. They have
Yeah.
the study sessions and everything. There's really no excuse to not
I
study
know.
for the SATs.
Okay.
And there's
Yeah.
so many apps out there. Like on my phone, I have the SAT Question of the Day app.
Yeah.
And I used to do that. It takes 1 minute to every day. And I even was like looking to see if there was other like SAT apps that weren't even related to the College Board.
Mm.
And there's a ton. There's these vocabulary ones. There was 5,000 vocabulary words, and you just take quizzes on them.
Right.
So if I had an extra minute, I would just do that.
Yeah.
So that's the SATs. What about the other standardized tests that are out there? The ACT, SAT 2s. What is your experience with your schools?
I took the ACT once. I heard a lot of good things about it, how it's kind of becoming a transitional test where it's like a lot more kids are taking it versus the SAT. And I can see why, because it's a lot more subject-based, as I mean, probably everyone knows. The thing is, it requires you to study, like, probably more than the SAT, I would say. Because at least the SAT, you can kind of connect to prior knowledge, and, like, it's more... and then with the ACT, it's more content-based. So you have to, like, for example, there was some trigonometry on it, and so really, if I don't know if every junior takes trigonometry by then, or if you need to have like a baseline for like you need to study the materials you learn in school more than just studying the strictly like the SAT book or like those applications that they were talking about.
Right.
Yeah.
Other thoughts on other tests?
Honestly, I got lucky with my SAT scores,
Yeah.
and they were above the average for most of my schools.
Great.
So I didn't see the need to take the
Okay.
ACT, but a part of me does wish that I had taken that anyway, just because there's always that curiosity of like, would that score have been better?
Mhm.
So that's one thing. I mean, I'm not gonna go back and do it at this point, but I kind of wish that I had started my testing earlier, and I did give myself that opportunity to see. So that's one thing I wish I had done differently.
Right. So, I mean, already I'm hearing so many different topics you got to keep organized, and there's a lot that you need to keep
Yeah.
on track. What were some suggestions to stay organized in this process, especially as we came up on the applications, but just even navigating your list? What kind of tools or tricks would you guys offer to stay organized with the college process?
Well, I have to admit that I was not always very organized with this. Like, I in my room, still I have a huge stack of college mail that Rachel is commenting that you should open everything.
Yeah.
But I'll admit, I don't really look at a lot of that.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
But what I do recommend is always keeping it in the back of your mind. Like, never let it slip off track. Like, always know that that's coming in your near future. So always, whenever you have a moment, I'm just going back to even just what I was saying about how any moment you have, just study. But just any moment you have to just work on your future, it's important, you know?
Great. Other
Like-
tips to stay organized?
I mean, I know, like, I actually made a binder when I started going
Okay.
to, college visits or going to college fairs. If I was picking up brochures or, writing down, putting my information in cards, and they were sending me things later in the mail, different course books, like, all that kind of stuff. I kept all of that, I put it in a binder, and I tried to organize it by, like, schools that I was most interested in at the
Okay.
front, et cetera,
Yeah.
like, do all that stuff. So, yeah.
One of the things that I did that I found was really helpful was, since all the schools require supplement essays
Yep.
that you write, on my computer I made a folder
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I
called
did.
College Essays,
Uh-huh.
and all my supplement essays are in that.
Great.
What did I do? Let's see. I remember my grandma gave me a piece of paper a clip out from a magazine, and it had a timeline for college,
Yep.
and that's kind of what I was looking at.
Okay.
And it just gave you a month by month blow of where you should be.
Great.
That was helpful.
So that helped. All right. You guys are all very involved in our school, and one of the questions that comes up for me a lot of times is how do people develop majors? So I'm interested to know if there are classes at school that helped you sort of think about the major that you're considering, or were there activities you've been involved in that have helped sort of inform what you might do in college? Anybody want to jump on that topic?
Well, one of the things that I'm involved, I'm in the Model United Nations Club.
Yep.
I'll be doing it for the second year this year. I really like the idea of like the international affairs and all that, and so considering that I want to go on to law school, I was interested in the field of like international law,
Great.
and so I think that club really is kind of steering me towards my career path.
Excellent. Other thoughts?
I have the same experience as Sam. I'm also in Model UN, and I want to apply international relations field to journalism and
Great.
become a reporter for a magazine that would report on international events.
Wow.
Yeah.
Nice.
Well, I'm thinking about going into the medical field,
Yeah.
so I would highly recommend taking anatomy.
Okay.
That was huge. And then over the summer, as a lot of you know, I did get my EMT certification. That's crucial for going into the med field. It puts you 10 steps ahead of everyone else, and it just gives you such a better chance. So if you're thinking about that, then
I think,
You
same
should
with
look
Rachel.
into
It was
that.
more, for me, there was a lot of, like, the actual classes in school that affected that. Like, my decision, I'm considering going to psychology, and for me, the deciding factor was taking AP Psych my junior year, and it was, it was an introduction, obviously, but I learned so much more than I ever even knew was involved in the basics of psychology, and so that, it sparked my interest. It made me
Right.
realize that it's a lot deeper, and I just, fell more in love with it.
Great. Awesome. Thank you. You guys talk a lot about visiting colleges, getting on campus, doing an overnight stay. Talk a little bit about the questions that you found useful, like maybe questions students should think about when they go and meet with college reps, and how to manage the whole college visit, like the actual day of. What things should they look at? What would be some suggestions that you have?
But one thing, just because, kids are always going to focus on, do you have this class, that, or, what's the social scene like, etc. But one thing that my mom actually brought up that I never even considered was campus safety, whether or not they have the blue lights, how well lit the
Yeah.
parking lots
Right.
are. Those are little things that, honestly, as a 17-year-old, I'm not going to think of,
Yep.
but those could make or break your college experience.
Right. That's a great thought.
And it's interesting you bring that up, because one school I applied early action to is Fordham, and it's in the Bronx, so on the Rose Hill campus, and when I was there for the college visit, they were emphasizing so much about how safe it is and they have all like the top line security systems. Everything is everyone is checked for. Everyone you're safe. You should feel completely fine. And then I remember people recommended that we go off campus and go eat in Little Italy, Arthur Avenue area, which is like just right down the street. And the atmosphere right outside the campus is completely different from on the campus. And I'm not trying to steer anyone away from going to Fordham or anything, but my tour guide was talking about how it is sort of a crummy area outside of the campus, but as long as you just keep on top of yourself and just make wise decisions, you're going to be fine. But that's another thing to keep in mind is what's like, yes, maybe you love the campus, but then what about the surrounding areas around it?
So sort of take a tour and see what else is there, not just
Yeah.
right on campus, right? Other thoughts?
Well, after going on a few college visits, I realized that some dining halls close at 7, which, that's kind of important to know.
Right.
And so I think, food's a huge factor in college.
Like, I know UConn, they have an unlimited meal plan. That's all I'm
They
saying.
close their dining hall at 7.
Do they really?
They do.
Oh.
Yeah, like,
So where do
kind
you
of
eat after
important.
7?
Exactly. You would
Yeah,
have
that's
to
gonna be a
spend
question,
your
right?
own money.
Yeah. Not
Yeah.
all the other restaurants.
I know.
One of the questions that I asked colleges when I went to was about AP credits and transferring
Right.
things to the school to see if it would eliminate having to take a required freshman class.
Awesome. Okay, great. Thank you. You guys are through the application process at this point. That's one of the reasons I asked you guys here is that
Thank
you've
God.
navigated it. Talk a little bit about the specifics of the applications. What were your applications like? Were there a couple different types? A lot of our applications are online these days. And then, submitting a really polished application, some tips and tricks on those.
Well, I started the Common App over the summer, and I didn't realize that it resets every
Yeah, in
August.
August.
So I filled everything out and then had to fill it out again, which, it made it easy because I knew what to look for, but it was also kind of a pain in the butt.
Right.
But, basically just make sure, don't submit anything until you meet with your guidance counselors. But, it helps to just have a list. If you have some sort of a resume, that's really great. But otherwise, just look it over. 10 times minimum before you try to submit anything. Go back to your freshman year, because that one, season that you did basketball because you wanted to try it, even though you may not think it matters, it does matter. All of
Yeah.
those things will add up.
Great.
Yeah,
Other
double,
thoughts on-
triple check those
Exactly.
things.
Other thoughts on applications, the process, the types of forms?
We're for I did the Common App. That's the only application I've completed. One thing I recommend is when you're filling out like things from your past and like just to complete like the activities, for example, you're given 10 maximum activities. Take the time to just take a blank piece of paper and just write out everything that you remember, that you recall, that you've done that seems important to you,
Mm-hmm.
and number those from 1 to 10,
Mm.
and see which ones are most important to you. And then have someone else look at them, say your parents or just someone close to you, and see if those 10 are what you want to represent you.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Great.
Make sure that they show that you're well-rounded too. I mean,
Yeah.
even though you may be really arts or musical, or you may just be involved in athletics, find something to show that you have a lot of interest, that you can really contribute to the community overall.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would recommend writing your college essay in the summer,
Yeah,
because
that's what I
if
did.
you wait until the school year, you're gonna be so overwhelmed, and it's,
So get it out of the way.
Yeah, get
Get
it out
everything
of the way.
out of the way. Everything
I
out of the
know.
way as soon as
Say
possible.
all that.
Yeah. I wrote a draft for my college essay junior year, but I mean it was required for the English class, so we can't brag about that. And I thought it was horrible. So I scratched that out of my mind completely. And then it wasn't until August I started getting really worried about it. Wait, I need to write my college essay, especially if I want to apply early action to schools. And so then September comes around, October comes around. October is when I realized I need to redo this essay. I need to make it good,
Yeah.
and I need to
Same.
send it out. I know. And so my recommendation to future applicants is take this time, spend time on deciding what you can really write about that can show who you are.
Mm-hmm.
And that was really hard for me, and I finally got down to it, but there was some personal changes that came along that I was able to write something about. But just kind of have start with a broad spectrum of ideas that you can build off of,
Mm-hmm.
and then narrow it down to what really represents you.
One thing I did hear from pretty much every school that I visited, they don't want the typical essay where you're throwing in a slew of SAT words and trying to make it sound
Yeah.
fancy and trying to impress them. They just want to hear about you.
Yeah.
They don't want to hear that you play soccer because they know from your your
Yeah.
application that you play soccer. They want to hear something different. They want to hear you personally.
Mm-hmm.
And another thing, AP Lit with Miss Shagru, she always emphasizes style, and so, I mean, maybe it's hard to make it creative because you're trying to prove something about yourself, but as much as you can, you want to make it unique and show that you're different from everyone else. You know, set yourself apart.
I'm going to pull this together. You guys have offered some great tips and tricks. I really appreciate that. Just to close out, I asked you before about your sophomore selves, your junior selves. I'd like you to give your sophomore or junior past self a do now. So think of a quick do now. We're going to start on my right with Christine. So think back to that person, and what would you wish that they knew then that you know now?
Definitely starting the SAT process a lot earlier.
Great. All right, Kate?
I would probably tell my sophomore self not to pigeonhole myself with the ideas I had for what I wanted. Be more open-minded to the possibilities.
Excellent.
I would say just don't stress about it, because we're all in the same boat. So
Great.
Yeah, I mean, everyone's going through the same process. You know, it takes time, it takes effort, and if you care enough about it, you'll do it.
yeah, it'll get done.
Well, I really want to thank you guys for your time. That concludes our show on navigating the college process, and really appreciate everyone's time on the panel.